Let's turn on the TV.
First appeared 52 minutes ago. Mexico City officials, as well as U.S. officials, have confirmed that these are not aircraft from either government's Air Force. The first sighting was made by an Air Mexico 747 en route from Mazatlan to New York as the unidentified crafts entered Mexico City airspace. They were not detected by radar by either country.
The nerds were right.
We have to tape this.
My ballet recital.
Listen, Bo. This is very important. Everything people have written about in science books is going to change. The history of the world's future is on the TV right now. We need to record this so you can show your children this tape and say you were there. For your children, Bo.
My ballet recital.
Dad.
Find another tape.
All right, you guys. Consider this a teaser for an upcoming video that I'm doing on the Djinn and the Joker psychology, and I have a lot of work that I want to do moving forward with essentially trying to map Clown World, map the demons within us, the devils that seem to be manifesting themselves in very, very particular ways. And I'm gonna upload these in individual chapters for the video. I'm going to be reading from multiple selections of this text here called the Akhbar Al-Zaman. And essentially this is an Islamic text of which the history and the background I am not as familiar with as I would like to be. I will be doing more research, but this book, this text I have in my book. If you recognize this from reading Verbatim episode 2 or 3, where we read from the Grimoire of Baphomet, which is essentially a neo-Nazi text on Satanism and acausal entities and causal entities and putting demons into human bodies and satanic rituals. Basically, this book is a time that I had from my drug benders, from my psychedelic years, where I printed off a lot of crazy texts that I kept. And over time, it's just become more and more relevant, especially the things that I hadn't read prior, such as things like the Djinn, things that I glanced over that now that I look at with more sober eyes, having moved away from the anarchy and the political upheaval, I really do believe that as we go through this period of revelation and judgment, there is a melding of demonology and psychology, and it's beginning to manifest itself in various different ways. And I think we've spent hundreds of years debating what this is, but I think this period of time right now is where, as we come together, we get those answers. We provide ourselves with the revelation. We collectively contribute to the story being told and bringing our pieces to the table. And this is one of my pieces, and I believe that it has a lot to do with things that are discussed on this channel and will be talked about moving forward. So that being said, hit your alarm bells. I'm going to have a long video on just all this crazy shit coming up, and I'm really excited about it, and I'm really excited to read this for you guys. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so I'm going to begin with chapter 2, the nations created before Adam. It is said that God created 28 nations corresponding to the heavenly mansions inhabited the moon, because this star was the attendant by the permission of God of the government of the earthly world. These races were created using different mixtures of elements, such as water, air, fire, and earth, and the individuals in them had various forms. There is a race where the individuals are tall and very agile and have wings, and whose language is formed by the snapping of fingers. In another race, the individuals have the bodies of lions and birds' heads, covered in hair and having long tails, and their language is a buzzing. In another, they have 2 faces, one in the front and one behind, and several feet. Their language is similar to that of birds. These nations are the Djinn. There is among others a kind of Djinn which has the form of dogs, complete with tails. Their language is an incomprehensible growl. Another race is similar to long snakes, provided with wings, legs, and tails. Others are like halves of men, having only one eye, a hand, and a foot, and walking by jumping and bounding. Their language resembles that of cranes. Others have the faces of men and loins covered in tortoiseshell-like turtles. They have claws for hands, long horns on their heads, and their language is similar to the howling of wolves. Others have 2 heads and 2 faces like the heads of lions. They are great and speak an incomprehensible language. Others have a round face, white hair, tails like oxen, and they spit fire from their mouths. Others look like women, with hair and breast. There are no males in this race. These women are made pregnant by the wind, and they bring forth that individual who resemble them. They have lovely voices, and they attract many people of other races by the charm of their voices. Others are shaped like reptiles and insects. Although they are tall, they eat and drink like cattle. Still, others are like the beasts of the sea, but they have tusks like wild boars and long ears. The rest of these 28 breeds are of various forms, and all have a wild appearance. They say that these nations interbred, and that the number of distinct races grew to 120. The Jinn, their tribe, and their kinds. They asked the Emir of the believers, Ali ibn Abu Talib, if before Adam there existed on earth creatures capable of serving God. He replied, yes. God created the earth, then he put onto it the races of Jinn, who celebrated ceaselessly in his glory and holiness. They flew into heaven, they met with the angels, they greeted them, and they received from them the knowledge of good and of the disasters that would arrive from heaven. But some of the Jinn rebelled, rejecting the authority of God and filling the earth with injustice. Some elevated themselves above others. They shed blood, and they displayed corruption and contempt for divine things. The rest of the Jinn preserved in religion and in obedience and broke the rebels. They, because of their submission, could continue to fly up to heaven. Angels, as we have said above, are spiritual creatures, equipped with wings that enable them to fly wherever God sends them. They live between the levels of heaven, and there they praise God and proclaim his holiness tirelessly until they are called on for a mission. The angel closest to God is Raphael. Michael comes after him, and then Gabriel. The revelation is passed from one to another until it reaches us. The Indians, the Persians, and the Greeks treated the genealogy and tribes of the Jinn and gave the names of their kings, and they believed they were divided into 21 tribes. When their empire had lasted about 5,000 years, they appointed a king from among themselves, called Shamal, son of Aras. Then they divided and named 5 kings, and they stayed a long time in this state. At the end, some of the Jinn attacked each other, and there were a great number of battles and terrible wars. The devil is a Jinn. He has many names, varying with language. His name in Arabic is Al-Harit, and his nickname Abu Murrah, the father of bitterness. He was a very powerful creature. He ascended into heaven, stood in the middle of the angelic orders, and served God with great zeal. When discord broke out among the Jinn, and these wars took place among them, he came to earth with an army of angels and defeated and massacred the Jinn. Then he established his empire on earth. But he swelled with pride and prevarication. One of his sins was his refusal to prostrate himself before Adam, as God tells us in his book. His form was changed into a hideous one, a figure of great repulsiveness, and all the tribes of the Jinn disowned him and moved away from him in horror. Seeing this, he fixed his abode upon the sea. God made him raise a throne upon the water. Later, he fathered a lineage, as Adam did. But the deformity of his race was manifested even in the act of reproduction. His descendants were similar to birds in this, and they hatched from eggs. The scholars have mentioned the types of Jinn. According to them, there are 35 tribes of Satan, 15 tribes of Jinn that fly in the air, 25 tribes of Jinn who walk on land, 20 tribes of Jinn that live in the water, 12 tribes of Jinn who run in the storms, 10 tribes of Jinn who run in the flame, 30 tribes of Jinn occupied with the magic of sounds. The kings of these tribes are responsible for protecting them against danger. It is reported that there is a kind of fairy that assumes the form of a beautiful woman and marries men. This adventure happened, they said, to Saeed bin Jabbar. He married one of the women fairies without knowing what she was. She stayed close to him and gave him children. One night, while she was with him on the terrace overlooking the countryside, plaintive voices of women were heard in the distance. She was troubled and told her husband, "Do you not see the fairy lights? I leave to your care your house and your children." And she flew away and did not return. There's also a kind of jinn that sets upon a man when they find him alone and the rocks are in ruins. They take him by the hand, forcing him to dance until he falls, dizzy, and then they suck his blood. There are some which are no different than snakes. Sometimes men kill them and die immediately. If the killer is a child, his father dies, or perhaps even someone more powerful. It is said that a young Ansarian, or the companion of the Prophet, being close to getting married, asked the Prophet for permission to celebrate the wedding and reunite his family at a feast during the Battle of the Ditch. The Prophet allowed him to do so. Back at his home, this Ansarian found his wife standing at the door. He conceived a great jealousy and made the gesture of directing his spear against her, but he stopped and said, "Abandon this thought, and instead enter and see what is on your bed." He entered and saw on the bed a great snake. He killed it with a spear, and instantly he died. The Arabs report the next adventure as having occurred to Abid ibn al-Abras. He left with some men to visit Syria. At one point along the way, he saw the Shoha serpent panting with thirst, and behind him a black Sauda serpent, which was chasing it. He dismounted and killed the black serpent. Then, untying his water skin, he sprinkled water on the Shoha, which crawled under a stone. Abid went on his way, and he finished on his business towards Syria. As he was returning, he fell asleep in a deserted place, and he saw when he awoke that his camels were lost. Not knowing the way, he remained in the same place. But when night had already enveloped all in shadow, he heard a voice saying, "O master of the young camel, you who have lost your way and have come with no guide to lead you. I offer you a young camel. Climb upon him, and when the darkness of the night has dissipated, and the morning will be near, and the stars will shine, remove his saddle from him, and let him go free." When he heard these words of the voice, Abid turned and caught sight of a camel surpassing beauty. He climbed upon it, and he traveled for the rest of the night. In the morning he found himself in front of himself, yet the day before he was 21 stations from his home. He descended from the camel and began to speak. "O young camel, I am here to give thanks to you for saving me from mortal peril. I was a traveler in the night without a guide. Return covered in the praise I heap upon you, so that the good you did to me is returned to you at night or in the morning." The camel replied, saying, "I am the Shoah serpent whom you met in distress and dying of thirst. You gave me water without thinking of yourself, and you did not reason like the men with hard hearts. Goodness persists long. Evil is the worst provision that you can put in your travel bag." The camel said, "The black snake that was following me is one of my slaves who sought to kill me. You removed me from his evil designs, and you quenched my thirst. This good deed will not be lost. God will count it."